the magical side of life, where anything is possible and the infinite is accessible to all. Let's have a conscious conversation about what's going on in the world, in your life, and your relationship from the expanded perspective of your soul. The path to awareness begins and ends in the heart. So let's take it there, one step at a time, and learn to cultivate magic in your life every single day. In each episode, we share a collective space in which we discover the unique facets of our own magic and embody our superhuman qualities by humbly exploring how it's super simply to be human. Hosts Kai and Dell co-create a magical experience to remind you that you are magical as fuck. Now, be unleashed. This is our daily magic.
What do you thought about the intro?
That was quite the intro. I have not seen anything like it.
That's right.
From all the stuff that you've been through, in which Kai's going to introduce, that is an honor to surprise you.
That made it all worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, welcome everyone to another exciting episode of our Daily Magic podcast. I saw you guys already with the comments, and I saw a flex in there. Somebody put a muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a little while. We missed you guys. It's always amazing to be able to just be for a little bit and then come back and have an amazing guest that we're going to co-create an amazing space together, an amazing conversation. So this will be a very magical one. And like every other episode, you guys bring your comments, your questions. Your magic is going to make this very magical. So I'm one half of the host, Dell.
And I'm Kai, and I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing our guest, Chris. Chris, how do you pronounce your last name?
Sirach.
Sirach in the house.
So you didn't catch that intuition thing when I was talking about the bar? I was throwing it at you. Yeah.
I always joke that Puff Daddy, I used to be 20 plus years in the advertising agency, and he paid, I think, $2 million for that name, and I was born with it.
Nice.
No wonder it sold for so much, you know?
So Chris Sirach has been practicing meditation since 2015. He came to it because all things society says that leads to happiness didn't. Chasing outcome after outcome left him feeling empty and burnt out. There had to be a better way to live life. After exploring many forms of meditation, he settled on what he found to be the most effective method of getting to the root of the mind's conditioned reactivity. His book, Be You, The Journey of Self-Realization, lays the foundation for his courses and teachings. He had studied with and learned from many of the luminaries of our time, like all of them, including Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Brian Weiss, Joseph Campbell, A Course in Miracles, and many others who have inspired him along the way. He's a graduate of the Eckhart Tolle School of Awakening and is a certified meditation teacher by the World Yoga Alliance, YACEP. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Kai and Dell. It's such a pleasure to be here in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So for those of you guys who don't know, Chris is on the other side. Right now, it's a mirror, as you can see here. Same room. We're both here together.
That's
All
right.
three of us.
Chris,
Well-
how the heck did you end up in Bali?
Oh gosh, I mean, the answer to all of our questions is, life brought us here, all of us, wherever we are, and that's really the journey that we're on, and everything's a reflection of who we are at that particular time. There's no right or wrong, and so yeah, just the whole idea is to live less from the conditioned voices in our head and more from the inner voice, the heart space, as we saw in our intro here, and let that inner built-in GPS guide us. And so, yeah, I just answered the call to come here.
Mm. We talk about different voices between the heart voice and the other voice. Was that other voice something you were listening to before that led you to the burnout and led you to being empty?
Yeah, of course. And I think we're all subject to that. It's a lot of times it's well-meaning voices, right? It could be our parents who want the best for us, or teachers or peers, and but their version, of life is their version, their experience, and it's not us. They don't know us. They're not us. So we have these imprints in us that make us feel like by the time we come of age, that their thoughts are our thoughts. And
Mm.
it takes a while to kind of sift through it and realize, no, that's not really me, and that's not in alignment, and other things are. And so you just go on the journey of self-realization to see what's really your core, and then learn to live by that.
So what led you on yours? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Well, I think the message with me is, a lot of, and many of those people that you mentioned in the intro that I've studied with, did kind of have a rock bottom moment in their lives where that, the turnaround happened. I think for me, it was more that I did everything you're supposed to do. And like you said in the intro, it just, something was still missing. And then I think I'm a seeker by nature. So I just started seeking and searching and trying things out, and um, you know achieving outcomes, it does lead to happiness, but it's like a temporary happiness. It arrives, and then just like life keeps changing and evolving, it passes again. And so then we try to cling to it, and then that moment of happiness turns sour right away because you're living in the past. So all of this, doing it over and over, just left me feeling like there had to be a better way. And I think that's pretty normal. I've seen this in I think pop culture calls it midlife crisis, where we do something for long enough and it just, the same result each time, and it leaves you longing for something, deeper and more meaningful. The question then is, do we, numb out and just continue on the path that we're on, or do we actually like take a hard look, carve out some time, and reflect on ourselves? And so that's what I did, and that's what got me here.
Yeah, it's like the video game, like when you come to the crossroads and you become aware, like you're talking about, aware, like, okay, this is not working. And what happens a lot in society is knowing that it's not working, but then you're trying to force it because this is the way I've been taught. This is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And it does feel like a video game. And I think we do really have unlimited tries, whether we like it or not. The same lessons are going to come find us and hound us until we learn the lesson and move to the next level. So, yeah, it's all, life is trial and error, and we have to try things out to really get a feel for them. But then very quickly we get a hit of, this resonates, this doesn't, and then really living by that, as opposed to some projection and in our head where we try to map out our entire life ahead of living it, ahead of actually living it, right? our whole life we like to plan out, but that's partly the problem is we're so in our heads. The mind is a tool designed to know things, and so if we live through the mind, that mental lens, then we're just constantly trying to control and steer and predict the future, quite literally, and then we're in resistance to everything that happens contrary to our expectations, and that's just not an easy way to go.
Mm-hmm. $1 billion question for you. Why do people do that? Why do you think people do that?
Yeah, so that really is the ultimate question. I mean, there's part of it is the conditioning of just kind of a lack of awareness and consciousness that's created the structures that we grow up in, um, and a lot of this. I'm baffled sometimes. This knowledge has been around. The wisdom has been around for thousands of years. Recently I've gotten into Roman emperors, and and they knew about that there were like five great good emperors, and they all were philosophers and writers, and they knew all of this stuff already. So I think it's just everyone has their own individual journey. We have a soul age, and that we come in with, and we're going to have to go through the stages and become more aware bit by bit. For most people, it's kind of a gradual process. Some, happens overnight, but for the most part, it's just learning and growing, and also, really, we're in this amazing 3D space suddenly, right? So we from spirit suddenly we're in this body, and now we have these senses, and we can see this incredible diverse world. I mean, no wonder we get lost in it. It's really incredible, and it's so diverse and so colorful in the shapes and the sizes, and so we should be forgiven to kind of uh lose ourselves in it, and then kind of have to find our way back. But that's just kind of the design of life, is we're here to experience ourselves in this uh, dimension, this shape and form, and then take what we learn back to the next level.
Got it. Got it. So when you use this phrase called self-realization, like what does that actually mean to you and the way that you're talking about it, as opposed to what someone may consider just like living normal everyday life?
Yeah. Well, I think they're the same, and it's just what you pick out and move forward with, or do you keep looping around your lessons? So the distinction that I make is less with the word self-realization, but the subtitle to my book, Journey of Self-Realization, whereas traditionally it's been referred to as the journey to self-realization. I found that actually is the same trap, if you will, of living for an outcome, right? The journey to some kind of endpoint, and to me, it's rather obvious that it is an ongoing journey. We're learning and growing, becoming more aware every single moment of every single day, or at least the opportunity is there, and then we have a choice to take that route in more alignment, and it's usually because the other ways makes us miserable and unhappy. So contrast is needed, right? And so ultimately, I think everyone gets to the point where they make a choice to be themselves, to be true to themselves, because any other way it's just like I said, it's a hard way to go.
Hmm. Yeah, you can see it on social media.
But what do
But
you mean? I'm happy
yeah.
because I have 3 Lamborghinis.
Here's the thing, and I was just talking to somebody about this as well. I'm like, if you have to emphasize that you're something, it's like talk about it, you're probably not it, because you're being it. Like, if you're being it, your being it speaks for itself. So it was something somebody was saying, like, yeah, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I'm like, why do you have to emphasize that you don't care about it? If you don't care about it, then you'll just be not caring about it. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
And it led to the person realization, you know what? I actually do care. You don't have to say it if it's true. Like, what do you need to prove it's true?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just, the joy and the simplicity of just being really present with your activities. I was like I mentioned earlier, a consultant for corporate and multimedia companies and ad agencies. Um, and it was just always living for outcomes and living for goals. And I applied that same mentality to, my interests and my passions in personal life. So when I was writing music or I was playing sports, I found myself also dissatisfied, even though I was doing the most amazing things or traveling and being in great places. So you could do the most incredible thing in the world and activity in the world and still be miserable and unhappy because you're not present with the activity. You're just
Mm,
chasing some kind of goal. So that's really, that was my
mm,
big turning point, is to recognize that it's not so much what you do, it's how you do it.
mm, mm.
Which really takes you to the next message then, that's derived from that, is that we don't need to sell everything we have and move to an island like I did. but but you can be present and find that deep fulfillment of being, like you say, Dell, that in any activity, and just, it makes you a better person and a more grounded person. It makes you a better partner, better parent, better sibling, better coworker, better neighbor, just a better being when you're more aware of what you're doing. So conscious eating, conscious walking, conscious folding the clothes, and doing the dishes. All of these activities, big and small, and in fact, the smallest ones are where we find our our true self is really a reflection of the simplicity of life, and we just get really overcomplicated by overthinking when we're in our head.
Mm. I got a question about the mind in regards to overthinking. Is it us who's overthinking, or is it the mind that's overthinking? And we're
Mm.
just aware of it, or is it a combination of both?
Mm. That's a good one. Let me reflect on that one for a second with my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Because like the mind thinks, but then also what can happen? We can consciously think.
Mhm.
So if the mind is thinking, and then we consciously are thinking about the thinking,
Yeah.
can it lead to the yeah.
Yeah. Well, awareness definitely is doing all this thinking and breathing and
Mhm.
and just all these the being itself, and awareness, having an awareness around it. So we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings. We're just a deeper essence, a presence that is aware of those things, and that's what cultivating awareness is. Building an awareness muscle, just like going to the gym. It's starting small and building up to where we're just more and more and more aware of this incessant stream of thoughts that comes our way. It's not about suppressing thoughts. It's not about rejecting thoughts or pushing away our feelings. It's mindful living is all about feeling your feelings fully, allowing your thoughts to come along, but accepting, having enough of a perspective that you accept the ones that resonate and that bring you insight, and that are inspiring, and then you just let the other ones pass, that don't feel good. So having a choice there, as opposed to getting lost in thought. I mean, some people say we get lost in thought. Up to 80% of our day is spent lost in thought, and so that's time not really alive, not really being here. And just imagine, by cultivating a little more awareness, even just 5%, 10% less lost in thought, that we get real life back, right? I mean, we can quadruple our actual life time experience by just becoming more aware and living more mindfully. So we do, we're infinite beings, and then with awareness, time also fades into the background. It's no longer the driving force behind all our daily activities, and so yeah, everything becomes magical, like you've got here in big font.
I was just touching it.
Yeah. Mm. So, but the mind, it's a really a significant question, because there's magic in the unknown, and when we become comfortable with the unknown, then we experience that magic, because it's every new moment that comes along contains, you don't know yet till it arrives, and there's just discovery, there's curiosity, there's challenges, of course, as well, but it's all contained in this wonderful thing, the unknown. And that's really what being alive is experiencing the unknown, and that's really just magical. Living by knowledge is static, it's kind of dead, it's already what you know, what you've experienced, and it's helpful to, knowledge can inform our present moment, or our skills and memory, and these are all important things, planning, organizational matters, but it's not really alive. Knowledge isn't, it doesn't have the magic. So if we just live by our plans and what we already know, then life becomes dull and drab, and we start to burn out because there's no juice. And so it's all about staying connected to the source of the juice.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I want to ask that. I had to like sit with it to like allow it to process for asking it. And it's in regards to burnout. And then you said something monumental of the source juice. Do you feel that burnout is due to not connecting to the source juice?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's all about source juice. And it's infinite. It's there. It's infinite. We have access to it, and we just cut ourselves off. And we cut ourselves off by overthinking, by judging and labeling, and every time we label something, this is how the mind works. But if we use the mind to navigate life, then we're constantly all day long navigating and judging, defining, labeling. And every time we label or judge something, it's a hit of separateness. It's a little tiny, like, even if we just call a tree, instead of just experiencing its presence, we label it, and that labeling creates a sense of distance, of separateness, meaning I'm over here, and that which I define or label or judge is over there. And so if we do this hundreds of times a day, we're always creating separateness. And that's how we start to feel isolated and lonely, and like we're up against this big scary world, and we cut ourselves off from the magic of the unknown because we're just trying to know everything. We can't even take a shower without the mind already jumping to ahead. What are we going to do once we get out? Because it's so uncomfortable with the unknown, because it's designed to know. So we got to get out of that mind, use it as a tool, but our mind doesn't know us. So we can't let it rule us.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm.
Right. Living in the domain of the known and the mind.
Yeah.
It's so limiting.
That's certainty, like knowing that, okay, this is what's certain going to happen. This is another thing I was talking about synchronistically, but I was talking about certainty. Like, for example, let's say like the certainty is I'm going to the store and I'm going to go to the supermarket to go shopping. That is certain. What happens in between that is uncertain. There could be traffic. I could get in an accident. There could be an accident there. The thing I could I'm looking for in the store potentially can't be there. I can go to the supermarket and run into somebody. There's so many unknown factors that happen, but I feel like, this is what's certain. I'm going to there, and I catch myself now when things I want for certain. I'm going there. I don't want any distractions. I just want to focus. I want to be able to get in, and all that stuff happens. Oh, my wife's just happening. Traffic. Why?
That's exactly what happens, right? We set an expectation, and steps to get there, and then we compare what's actually happening to what we think should be happening,
Mm,
and then we're just in constant resistance and always on the
hmm
lookout. And we it keeps our focus really narrow and small. We don't see anything else. In fact, anything outside of our expectations becomes like
hmm
bad, or the world is out to get us, and we blame
hmm
other people for interfering. And so, yeah, it just creates misery in an extremely narrow lens, and you just miss out on all those opportunities of running into somebody, or just taking in the amazingness of city life if they're sitting in traffic, or just taking a moment to connect with your breath before you step into a meeting or get into an elevator, and just living your aliveness, and staying connected to the source juice.
Source juice.
I'm drinking it. Source juice. Source juice.
I've got
Sponsored
some
by
here
Chris
myself. Yeah.
Right.
Source juice. Sponsored by Chris Rock. We're bringing out the product now.
All right.
It's the announcement of the product.
And so we're dabbing into advertising now, like your former life, Chris. I'm like super curious. While we're taking a dive into who you've been, I'm curious, like, where would you start to when we're talking about labels, and you mentioned midlife crisis, like how can we rebrand that to bring the latter half of humanity back to a person's life?
Nice.
Dang.
Well, you're onto something. Yeah, because it's all about words, and relabeling, and that's kind of the core of my work, is to take the spiritual out of the spiritual. Because when I was starting out, yeah, I was just turned off. I didn't understand all this woo woo, and now I get it and love it, and everything's great. But at the time, it was like a barrier. I wanted the wisdom, but the words were getting in the way. So that's why I wrote my book, to be as non-offensive and non-triggering as possible. There's, like I said, taking the spiritual out of the spiritual and just leaving the wisdom. Um, and a lot of that is rebranding, and just calling things in ways that are more accessible and digestible and acceptable to folks. And I needed that. I wish I had my own book earlier on, and yeah, and so I, instead of, a lot of guys, when they hear yoga, especially guys, will go like, that's not for me. Well, maybe we call it conscious movement, and well, that sounds a little more interesting, which is what
Right.
I do at my retreats and so forth. So it's all a little bit about packaging things in the way that the guards come down.
Yeah, the labels. It's sort of like for like doing spirituality for corporate, you call it mindfulness. And mindfulness. Yeah. But meditation's in there now. Like meditate, you're good. You're good with
Yes.
meditation.
Yes. Yeah. And I've noticed over the years, because I did that a lot in trainings and executive coaching and all that, the acceptance of certain things has grown incredibly. So yeah, you can talk about meditation now. It's actually, they want it. Whereas before, you had to be a little bit careful, and of course always get your curriculum approved. But yeah, it's getting easier, and there's like a greater acceptance around everything.
So when you're working with people or meeting with people or gathering people, like in your retreats, or even like to think about the vernacular that you use in your book, do you find that it's helpful to you to think the way that you used to in order to reach people with what you're saying? Or are you just like fully like all, like in this freedom paradigm that you've created for yourself and not looking back at all?
Well, the same stuff that I talk about, recognizing your inner truth, and being your authentic self. That applies to me every single day just as much. And so I have to stay true to that message. And I think it's a great question, because I think a lot of folks are, I remember, struggling with how do I tailor my message, and to the audience. And I was an audience researcher for 20 plus years as well. So, but ultimately you just have to be true to your voice, and carry yourself, and speak the way that resonates. And then, the people that you resonate with will find you, and you're just putting out energy anyway. So you want that energy to be pure and pristine and super aligned, and everything else doesn't matter. This life is, kind of a shell, and you just want to really connect with spirit and source juice, and just be as true to yourself. And then your purpose could be sitting on a tree, or being in a head of a company, or being a great partner or parent, or whatever it is. That's just an expression of your authenticity. So, but it all starts within.
Thank you.
With some source juice.
Right.
We gotta use the hashtag for this episode. Hashtag source juice. Get the shirt. Get the shirt. You gotta create the shirt now. Source juice.
Well, see, that's how it happens, right? It's just it came up organically, and you can't plan these things. And when they happen, it's like you're experiencing it for the first time, and it just kind of came through us. And so it's a collaboration usually also helps. The kind of the spark of creativity jumps around, and it's much bigger than just the sum of the individuals. And so, yeah, I mean, we're living the magic right now.
Totally. Amazing. So when you were writing your book, what were the kinds of experiences that inspired you to be like, hey, this needs to reach someone else?
Well, it came out of my own, journaling and my own work. And I never wrote a book before, and I didn't even read a lot. And so it was, I took a series of angels to kind of push me along and prod me to realize that, oh, there's a voice that was emerging. My voice was emerging from all of this writing. And so the work I was doing on myself then became a theme. And little by little, it all came together. I mean, I was driving on an LA freeway when just "BU" popped into my head. And so I've always been, I was lucky to have parents that encouraged me to just follow passions. And so I think I was more connected to trusting the things that resonate. And so, yeah, even with the book. But ultimately, it's about being a channel to that source juice, right? And even when you're writing music or doing any type of art, and anything is art, really. You could be an accountant. My accountant is the most creative person in the world. And so it's really just about allowing all of that to flow through you. And I tend to joke that I didn't really write the book. The book wrote itself through me, but that's really the experience. I was reading a quote by Johnny Cash on how he was asked to be creative on Tuesday, and he said, "I can't promise I'll be creative on Tuesday, but what I can tell you is if I go for a walk in the forest in the morning, in the park, then I might come up with a tune in the afternoon," something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that of it wrote through you. I mean, that universal consciousness that's flowing through you, wanted to get created through you. And I'm trying to think what podcast, Next Level Soul podcast. I was recently listened to episode, and they were talking about that same energy of creativity. Like you said, the accountant who's just being his highest form, or his or her highest form expression through that. And we're talking about like the Michael Jordan, that level of just being in that state, or Kobe, and it's really just your passion, like what you're meant to do, and to bring that creativity and let it flow through you to bring it out to the world. This is amazing. That
Yeah.
same energy that flowed through Kobe and Jordan flows through you and everyone else in their own unique way as well.
Exactly that, right? And so we have this blueprint inside every single one of us. And that's what resonates. When something resonates, it's that blueprint, right? And it's unique and specific, and it's the only, everything points to that, right? We can try to avoid it, and that just makes us sick, literally. And sooner or later there really isn't a choice. I talk about the choice of being you and not being you ultimately isn't really a choice, because not being you, at some point, it becomes so clear that um, that's not a way to live, and that's not how you're supposed to live. And so then that really then reinforces, like, you really only have yourself uh, to respond to answer to. It is your responsibility. It is your way of giving back to life, is to live up to that inner blueprint and the person that you're meant to be.
Mm. So how does one start the process of accessing that blueprint?
Well, it's really there's many different ways to come out of our head, and because we have that inner voice, but it's a subtle voice, and whether you call it heart, intuition, gut, inner divinity, higher self, whatever you want to call it, I call it inner voice, and it gets drowned out by all that conditioned head noise. So we have to come out of that noisy space, and it's fairly easy. It just takes it takes a routine, like we talked about, building an awareness muscle. It's just like going to the gym and working out. So breath work is an easy way. You can do any morning routine mindfully, but connecting with nature, walking, moving, and doing those things consciously with awareness. Um, the first thing I do in the morning is it takes 1 minute, is a 4-7-8 breathing technique, pioneered by Dr. Andrew Weil, and you can look that up. It's 4 seconds breathing in through your nose, holding for a 7 count, and then exhaling through the mouth for 8. And that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It calms you down and puts you into a relaxed state. And when you're relaxed, then again, we're more in the flow. But you can, when I go to the refrigerator and pour my morning glass of water, for those 7 or 8 seconds, I'm also being present with the water pouring into the glass. And that's my first indicator, part of my routine, of just how unruly my mind is today. And the thing with meditation, mindfulness, is not to insist on, I need to get calm, but rather it's to accept whatever state you're in today. So I wake up, and maybe in certain days my mind is just all over the place. It's not the resistance to the mind being all over the place and somehow forcing it to be calm that relaxes us, but rather it's the acceptance that my mind is all over the place. And that's the calmness is a byproduct of surrendering to the present moment. So, these are all part of the usual experiences once one gets started. And expectations can be a blocker. First time you experience bliss in whatever practice you have, it starts to form an expectation that then prevents you from getting there again, right? So it takes a little bit of a practice to just be and just allow things to be.
Yeah, I'm laughing that you're talking about me. I'm trying to I want to get back there. And it's like when I'm forcing myself to try to get back there, it doesn't happen. And then when I just be, it's like, oh, I was already there. I just had to clean up some more stuff to get deeper into it.
Exactly. And it happens so quickly. I mean, to this day, I mean, I find myself pushing, just pushing too hard, and then every once in a while, I realize, oh my gosh, I need to let go and allow more, because I've been sneakily, this pushing and pushing has crept up on me again, and so it's all good. There's no right or wrong. We're always learning and growing and expanding. You know,
Hmm.
words. Speaking of words, the concept of failure really doesn't exist. It's all just learning and growing and expanding, and that's what life wants us. It wants
Hmm.
us to heal. It wants us to grow. It wants us to come out of our comfort zone so we can be our fullest self. And that's why we keep getting triggered. And that's why we keep getting lessons so that we can become our fullest self.
Hmm. I want to throw a curious question to you. This is something that I just like contemplated on. I was like, I feel like I resonated with this as well. So in regards to like self-realization, in regards to the term out there, enlightenment, and all these other things, like for me personally, what resonates with me in regards to that, I just want to hear your input as well. I feel that it's infinite because we're infinite. We're always expanding, we're always evolving, and it's like you feel like this is the ceiling, and then it becomes a floor, and there's another level you can keep ascending to, like you keep ascending. And I hear it all the time. Even the ascended masters, they're learning in the other realms and stuff as well, continuing to evolve. So I'm like, is it really a destination or is it a journey?
That's exactly it. You know, one of the questions I get often is what are the, how can you tell that that you're working that awareness muscle, and how does that express itself in your life? And I think I mentioned earlier the sense that time is no longer pushing you and pressing you along, and but rather that it's just kind of in the backdrop of, helps with planning or booking a ticket or something. But so you're no longer in a rush to get anywhere, because you are where you already are, in the most important spot, and the only place that's real right now. Everything else is a projection, and in essence fake. So that's when you start feeling like you are infinite. And one of those things is to no longer be stressed out about beginnings and endings, because that really doesn't exist. It's everything's continuous, a continuous expansion and evolving, and so it applies to one's own life as well. You just don't think of it as a beginning and an end any longer. You just don't feel it that way. And so that relieves a lot of stress, because it's one of the last big taboos that no one wants to talk about, especially in the West. That the end of life. Well, it isn't your end of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something for myself I integrated for the past couple of years of experiencing the quote unquote the physical end of life of people close to me. And it got me curious. So it's just the beginning for them fully going into what I'm truly am beyond this human body. So is it really the end, or is just a ascension for the next level for them? That's the way I take a look at it.
Exactly. It's like it's a promotion, right? And
I love that.
Rebranded.
Yeah. What if death is a promotion?
Yeah, I remember when my dad got his promotion. It was also just realizing that he's still around. His energy, his essence is there. He's never left me, and the people around us. And the most important thing, I think, when our time comes to get promoted, is to really embrace that and not have any resistance in us, because that's what we leave behind. And I was really lucky with my dad that he really embraced the whole experience. It was really tough for him in the end, and that left us all in like a good place. That he was at peace with this, right? So it's definitely something that you hear people like Deepak nowadays talks about meditating on his promotion continuously every day, because he wants to prepare for it deeply. And so, yeah, that's definitely a topic that isn't really discussed much, and we should confront it for ourselves at the very least.
Yeah. But also because of the fact of the conditioning around it, that's fear based. So a lot of people are afraid of that. But then also the awareness, when you actually bring awareness to the promotion, that this time here is limited. And we could fall for the illusion of we'll always have time to go for those things that we want. Got more, well, time later on to spend with loved ones, all this different stuff. And then life shows you it's
That's
finite.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the
And you
physical portion.
exactly. And you hear about this all the time where people get some kind of prognosis and diagnosis that they only have so much time left, and then suddenly they start living differently. Well, why weren't they living that way before? Because there was no change ultimately, because we should be living purely as consciously as we can, and as present as we can, and as connected as we can, and really doing things that resonate. That's a vibration. Everything's energy. And so when we're vibrating highly, this is what we're contributing back to the planet and the dimension that we're in. And like I said before, you don't have to be a public figure necessarily. You don't have to be a guru, zen master, and live in a monastery or ashram, but anything that you're doing, that you're feeling called to, is an opportunity to vibrate at your highest.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Dang. I was trying to be in the mountain. Come find me. Come find me in the mountain. Grow the beard out.
Well, life will find us. I can relate to that. Life will find us. It doesn't matter. We can't run away from it, right? Because we're bringing ourselves, who we are, to everything we do. So you can't run from yourself. And
Yeah.
if you're creating noise, generating noise for yourself, it might be a quick period where you're in a new environment, and that kind of takes over, but then you're back to your old self. So you gotta work on yourself.
Yeah. So you hear that, people who are going to listen to this? You can try to run away into a new relationship, run away to a new job, run away into a new city and things like that. The common denominator is going to still be there, which is you. So it's like, oh, you're going to go here? Lesson.
Yeah, it kind of. I heard a ding when you just said lesson, and so there's just dings going off, all day long.
Yeah, yeah,
Ding, 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 ding.
it is. So it's like how, and it's also like how can you run away from something that's infinite?
Oh my gosh!
No.
Yes.
Where can people find this book? Because it sounds life-changing.
It is life changing.
Yes. Well, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's on Audible as a self-narrated book. If you want to hear my voice in audiobook voice.
Really?
I was about to ask you if it was on Audible. Did Morgan Freeman narrated?
Well, it's funny. After I recorded it, it took about 3 months. Anytime I would read anything, I would sound exactly like this because I couldn't get out of that voice. And so it took a while to find back to normal talk. But yeah, it's out there, and also on my website you can find that. I'll mention the URL later.
Awesome.
It got released on Audible 5 days before my birthday.
Hey.
It's a good time to release stuff.
I knew that exactly. It was actually ready a month before that, but I waited.
Oh wow.
So I get closer to Dell's birthday.
Yes, because it was all planned out.
Thank you.
Well, that's what happens when we start listening to our inner voice. Is things unfold on their own, and we're in that magic of new moments coming and going, and being okay with the coming and going. And so we just become part of the greater current, and it's so much easier. And life is light, and it's mysterious and fun. And sure, there's some unpleasant and tough emotions that we have to deal with, but it's the experiencing that takes precedent, and it's not so much the quality. The experience in itself makes us so much bigger than any feeling or any thought that can come along. It can't touch us any longer, because we're closer to being one with everything than just being stuck in our own little thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's one of the realizations right there for myself that started integrating of like, life is not always going to be beautiful moments. There's going to be painful moments. And once again, it's like, in those moments, how do I choose to be with them? They're inevitable. So like you mentioned before, the muscle, I like to call it the spiritual muscle. And for me, that's why I like to meditate. And I've been meditating practice like every day to be with myself, because inevitably life's going to have moments that's going to force me to be with myself. So I might as well spend some time now willingly, so that when inevitably life does that, I'm more prepared for that.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that in today's world, we don't have those opportunities kind of built into the way we live and the way we grow up. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a company offering enlightenment leave? Right? It's just not going to
Can you
happen.
imagine?
Probably because they know there's a chance you're not coming back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But still, we have to find those moments for, carve out some time for ourselves, and life events happen that take us there. So it's all on our own time. There's no reason to stress either. If we love, going out or doing this or that, we should be doing that, because the lessons that will entice us and encourage us and prompt us to go deeper come through the doing. So the being essence is cultivated through the doing. You can't just sit on your sofa and start thinking yourself into greater awareness. It's engaging with life. And so, yeah.
I thought I could
all that
order
sofa time, I know.
I thought I could order enlightenment from Uber Eats. Your enlightenment is on its way.
With a side of source juice.
Yes. With a side of source juice. That's hilarious. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good
one. I mean, I could have did it over there.
Yeah, do it.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah. You do see that coming up a lot, the packaging of it into something of mindfulness, into something just like a quick fix or a life hack. And it's just so much more than that. It is your life purpose is to know yourself, to realize who you are and who you're meant to be and what you're here for. And that's not a hack. That's the core of your being.
Yeah. That's why that one moment you think it's all bliss and stuff like that. And that one moment, yeah. It's cool. Like during these times, people are more open to it as well. So the seeds are getting planted. And obviously with the seed being planted, it's up to you to water your plant as well to allow it to grow. But even if you don't water it, it's still it's still growing from the source juice.
Exactly. And I actually use that very analogy, is that, we're cultivating these plants from seeds, and it'll sprout and blossom on its own time. And the awareness is the nutrients and the water, and from below, the source juice is of course is everything. And everyone, I taught in higher education for over 10 years, and I saw that everyone learns differently and has their own style. And you just have to find your style and on your time as well. And that's how we learn best. And if you're passionate about something, that passion will arise, and you should pursue it. And just don't spend so much time on things that don't resonate. It your passion is your fuel, and without that, you're gonna burn out. You're gonna run out of you know excitement very quickly, and then what? So then you're a year into something, and you just have no more interest in it. You can't force yourself to be connected to something that you're not connected to.
Mm. Hmm. Huh. Tell people who do that in relationships.
Those are the toughest, but those are also our
Yeah,
greatest teachers, right?
it
Because they
is.
expose everything so quickly, all our expectations, all our. Actually, I have a chapter about relationships in BU, and um, where I kind of poke fun at how we live, and we have these checklists that we go into new relationships with, or if we're dating, and that checklist is ultimately a list of judgments, of how we judge the world and how we judge ourselves. And now we're
Woo!
looking for somebody who
Yeah.
judges the world in the same way.
Woo! Woo!
And yeah, and then trying to control and steer someone else is the quickest way to learn that you can't do that. So those things deepen us, right? The things we expect will make us happy. That we manifest these things usually from a place of lack, right? Because
Mm,
we're seeking happiness. So
mm,
all that lack will result in a situation that turns out to not bring us permanent joy, but rather point to the place that is permanent, that is within. So that's kind of the design of life. And so even if you're completely unspiritual, if you have no interest in self-development, life will, I call it the middle road, where you just will manifest situations, circumstances from your inner lack. And then when that situation arrives, it's always different. It's never the way you expected it. And making peace with the situation, coming to terms with it, will deepen you, right? Surrendering to the reality of what you've manifested will deepen you, and so that will happen to everybody. You can't avoid it. And so ultimately, we're all on the same path. We're just some have embraced it and are more aware of it than others.
oh yeah. And then some are kicking and screaming.
That's the long road, yeah,
Yeah.
and that can that could be a tough road to travel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can see it on display. But then also speak about like the internal source juice. And in regards to relationships, people are making a relationship their source juice, meaning you are my source of whatever I feel like I'm lacking. So I need you to be my source of this. I'm expecting you to be my source of this. But
Exactly.
but then it's never enough.
Yeah, it's never enough, and you're always looking. If the other person needs to say the right things at the right time in the right way,
Yeah.
so you can keep covering up your own sense of lack. And I always say the best relationships are between two people who don't need each other.
Mm, yeah. Because then you get to choose each other.
Yes, you don't put that pressure on the other
Mm,
person to be your end all, right? It's
mm,
e-
yeah.
eventually you crush that situation by needing it to fulfill you.
Mm. It's all pointing. It's all pointing to you coming to that realization. Anyway, but it's like the repetition, the sanity thing. You know, when they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So expecting the relationship to be the end all be all, but then multiple times it's proven that it's not. So the thing about this creator of us is so infinitely patient with us. So
Yes.
how many times you need it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you think about it, you could say there's a little bit of cruelty in there. It's like, oh man, do I have to keep going through this over and over till I learn my lessons? Yes, you do. But there's only love on the other end, because that's the source of everything anyways.
Yeah. And it's helping you to get there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Chris, will you enlighten us with your link so we can send people your way?
Yes, of course. So it's my last name, Cirak.com. That's CIRAK.com. And
What
you
a
can find,
domain.
yes.
So, oh,
There
we got
it
a couple of
is.
loves here.
Nice.
We do.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. This is so good.
Perfect. Yeah, and there's a lot of spaciousness. I know I was doing a lot of talking here, but I could feel there's a lot of stillness and spaciousness between you guys, and I would more than happily just spend time, even if it's just 10 seconds in stillness, and just that the sound of silence is the most magical of all.
Yeah. And what a beautiful note to conclude on. If someone just came on here and they're like, who's this guy? What's he about? Because I'm just here for 5 seconds. Is there something that you would like to leave them with as they're coming in and going back into their life?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is to recognize that you don't have to hit rock bottom to start living a more meaningful life. Um, it's all there in front of us. We have access. There's different styles of teachers. You just have to seek it out, and you'll it will show itself. And beyond that, there really is no right or wrong. Everything is always a reflection of who we are at that point in time, and it's what generates our reality, our sense of reality. And through that, we learn our lessons that help us grow. We discover our triggers that point to the things within ourselves that need some tender, loving care. And so everything's good, and life is really full of magic.
Yeah, it is. That's for sure. Thank you, Chris, for being with us. This was magical.
Thank you, Kai and Dell. It was definitely magical. I'm more than happy to come back anytime.
Please do.
Yes.
Please do. Please, because we need an update, because I'm about to contemplate on this book of yours, and we're going to really dive into this. And everyone here as well who was part of this episode, think about one part of this you can take in to integrate more of magic in your life. But then also, what I challenge you to do is to read this book on being, be you, and integrate that into your life.
Yeah. Thank you again, Chris. Thank you, everyone who's joined us and contributed to the conversation. Thank you, Del.
Thank you, Kai.
You're welcome. And
stay magical.
You've been listening to our Daily Magic Podcast with Kai and Dell. Please like, subscribe, and tune in next week for another magical episode. Visit www.ourdailymagic.com for more. Thank you for listening and have a magical day.